Previously on Creating Magic for Money 101, I went into excruciating detail on how you arrive at the retail price for a magic trick. Let's recap quickly. I explained that when you have the retail price of an item, let's say $20, that the magic shops pay 60% of the retail price, which would be $12, and the jobber or the wholesaler, the person that buys it from the creator, pays them 40%. So a $20 item at retail means the creator gets paid $8. Now each one of these people adds some sort of value to this. So it's not like the creators are getting robbed because of the fact that, we're not even making half of what you pay retail for it. The shops have to have inventory, they have to have risk, they have a lot of things they have to do. The wholesaler has to buy a ton of these things. They've got to have warehouses filled with this product, and not all of it moves. They've got to be, out money for a period of time, so they have an investment there. So at each step of the way, people add value to it to the point that you get it. Now, it's great to be able to sell stuff direct, shockmagic.com, free shipping on many items, but it's also great to support your local or your online magic retailer. So that's how we arrive at what the retail price is. The retail price is you figure out your cost and then what profit you need and times it by 2.5, and that is the retail price right there. So $20 item means it's going to cost you $8 plus whatever profit. But how much profit? How do you decide that? What are your costs? What are these numbers? That's an important detail to figure out, which let's get into profit and costs. So you buy an item. What goes into it? Well, several things go into an item, whether it's a trick, a DVD with a trick, what have you. You have materials. Now, if it's a DVD, this means that you actually have to pay for the cost of the DVD, the case it goes into, and all of that. Now, you can do one-off DVDs, just about every computer. You can print one yourself, you can put a label in it, you can put a wrap around it, and it'll play on just about any standard DVD player. That's fine. The quality on that is good enough. Now, people can pick these up, and they can sometimes tell when they've been made that way. But if you want to keep your costs low, that's certainly a viable way to do it. If you want to keep your cost low per unit and you think you're going to sell a lot, then you probably want to go to a replicator and print a bunch at a time. Your costs get really cheap when you start talking about doing 1,000 units or more. To do 1,000 units means what they do is what's called a glass master. Is you send them the original DVD and they make an actual version of it on glass that they use to press and create those mass-produced DVDs, and that allows the cost per unit to go, around $1. Okay. Whereas if you do it yourself or you pay somebody to do one or a few at a time, it's going to cost you $2 to $3 each, which is a great way to launch a product. And when I talk about bootstrapping, we'll get a bit into that. But for now, let's talk about materials, which could be the cost of a DVD. If you're going to do something that uses, Sharpie pens or whatever, it's what you're paying per pen and what you're paying to make your gimmicks. So your materials include that. Also put into your materials, we're going to put what it costs to package something. You can have a wonderful trick, the levitating Sharpie pen that reads your mind, but you've got to put it into something so that people can buy it and it's not just loose. Packaging can sometimes cost just as much as your materials, so it's a thing to remember when you're trying to figure out how much your product costs, materials and packaging. Now, when you figure this out, you got to figure out how much will it cost you to produce a dozen, how much will it cost you to produce 1,000, because the market for magic tricks is not huge, but you never know. You want to figure out, at the low end, obviously if you're producing fewer, it's going to cost you more per item. If you're going to produce more, that cost goes down. How much money do you want to have on inventory? How much money do you want to make in profit? And there's a trade-off there. Now, you don't want to end up, sleeping on your failure like I talked about, where I had to put a futon on top of a bunch of cases of books, although I did make money on it. I still had a lot of inventory, more inventory than I could put into my tiny one-bedroom apartment at that point. Now I've got a townhouse and warehouses, and I'm still running out of space. But my point is, figure out your material cost. Next is labor. What is your labor cost? When you figure out your price of an item, what is labor? Now you might say, labor costs nothing. It's going to be your time, which is free. Well, yeah, the first couple hundred, if your product's successful, you might be happy to make them. You're making a little bit of money, but you still want to put something in there for labor, for your time, and also because if your product becomes successful and you can't keep making it and you've got to pay somebody else to do it, you have to have that money come from somewhere. If you price your product so low that you don't include a labor cost and then you go to somebody else to make it for you, you can't pay them nothing. Can't lose money on it. You don't want to run a charity. So figure in a labor cost. A good estimate is to say between like $10 and $20 an hour is what you would pay per cost to have something made. So if it takes you, an hour to make 20 items, then you figure out, let's say $20 an hour, you figure out, it's worth $1 in labor per item. That's what you'll pay somebody else to make it, or that's what you're going to pay yourself. But have a number for that. Now, most of the stuff I first put out, I made it all myself. I wanted to keep my costs down as low as I possibly could. Now, this meant that I spent a lot of time in my living room watching Stargate SG-1 on DVD, but it was great. It was my own time. I was my own boss. I could be as inappropriate as I wanted. I could make whatever jokes I thought were cool and not worry about getting fired. Now, as you start to put out more and more products, you might have to bring in more people to help create stuff for you, so it's always important to build in labor costs in there. Now, another factor to put into labor or into materials, if you're going to do a DVD, if you're not going to do it all yourself, if you're going to have somebody else make it for you, design, shoot it, whatever, design the packaging, that's a one-time fixed cost, but you've got to figure that into either materials. Just put it into materials, okay, which is a one-time cost, but you've got to figure that out. If you don't, then you're going to lose money. How much should you pay somebody else to shoot a DVD for you and to edit it for you? You could pay somebody a few $100s, you could pay a few $1,000s. It really is highly variable. It depends upon who you know. Now, I try to do everything myself. If you can't do it, find somebody else. Find somebody who's interested in doing it and good at it. Maybe somebody hasn't done magic DVDs. Maybe somebody who's done other kinds of DVDs, but who wants to. Show them some really good DVDs and start from there. What you should spend on that, I don't know. You could spend $500, you could spend a couple thousand. I've never hired anybody to do my own DVDs. When I hire somebody to do editing, it's for a TV show, for a network, and that's a lot more expensive, and I could never do that on this budget. So figure out your costs. So you have one-time fixed costs, which would be like that, your design, DVD stuff. Figure out your material cost, your labor costs, and then marketing. You want to put some money in there for marketing, maybe just a few $100, but you want to get the word out about your product. A lot of magicians skip this step. They just come up with a product, they just bring it to, suppliers, and they leave it at that, and they don't do enough to promote it. Promote your product. Now, this could be an ad in a magic magazine. It could be a sponsored post at iTricks.com, which is really a very good value. Starting prices at $40 for a one-time sponsored post. Get your word out in front of hundreds, if not thousands of people, plus podcast advertising. If you ever want to find out more about the wonderful advertising opportunities at iTricks, please feel free to contact us or speak with Justin Robert Young. It's a great value. Whatever you decide to do, put some money into marketing. Now, a little thing that I love to do is I have 4x6 postcards printed up for every product I do. It costs me a couple $100. I send those out to my suppliers who then give them to the magic shops, and that way people know what's coming. Now, the important thing about that is I don't put contact info for my own website, because I want this to go through the shops, and I want the shops to hand them out and not to feel like I'm going to try and steal their sell. So be very, very careful of that. So you figure out your materials, your one-time cost, your labor, your marketing, and that gives you your cost per unit, okay? Now figure out a cost per unit to do 12 units, figure out a cost per unit to do 1,000. If you want to go crazy, figure out, for 5,000. But plan on the low end. Figure out how to make money doing 12 units at a time, and you're not going to lose money. Probably not. If you do, it's only going to be 30, 40, 50 bucks, okay? So once you've figured out your cost, then what you've got to figure out is what your actual profit's going to be. And that's going to be what you sell it for wholesale or jobber, which is going to be that 40% of retail, minus your cost equals profit. So how do you determine that price? Now, we told you that wholesale price is going to give you your retail price. 2.5 times that wholesale price will give you your retail price. Well, here are a few things to consider. Your retail price equals more than your costs. Should be, geniuses. You want to make sure your retail price is more than you're spending. Enough to make it worth your time. I've had friends that have come up with great products. They put them out there and they've sold a couple hundred of them, and they realize they're only making $2 each, and they're like, man, this sucks. I could be spending my time watching Stargate and not building stuff. So think about that, okay? So more than your costs, enough to make it worth your time, and what the market will pay. This is very, very important. How much is a trick worth? Well, go look at a magic shop, go online, go look and see what people are paying for magic tricks. That will tell you what the ceiling is for price. If you have a great idea and it's going to cost you $800 to do it, and it's a stupid torn and restored card trick, you're probably not going to get that much for it, okay? Now, there are exceptions. There's some really great little close-up tricks that go for a couple $100 because of reputation, whatever, but figure out what the market will bear. For a one-trick item like a DVD, one-trick DVD, it's between like $15 to $25. That will tell you what the market price is, okay? Between $15 to $25. What do other things sell for out there? Figure out what your costs are, and then when you subtract them from your wholesale price, that's going to tell you what your profit will be, okay? Now, I'm going to do in the next video, show you basically if you want to mass produce, how not to lose your shirt on it, okay? Figure out how to do a dozen at a time, but then I'll show you how to, if you want to make a couple hundred, if you want to take advantage of the price cost that you get when you buy like 1,000 DVDs at once, I'll show you how to do that, and we talk about the magic number of 300 in the next video. But for now, remember, wholesale price minus cost equals profit, which equals money.